Hey there guys, welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be creating 4 hover animations using just this button. So the first animation we're going to create is that when we hover over this button, you see the black background of the button slides down and reveals a white background while also changing the text to black. So let's go ahead and get started creating this. So inside of our index.html file here, we're just going to create our elements. And the first thing we're going to do is just link our style sheet. So we've got a styles.css style sheet, then an effects.css style sheet. And the reason we're separating this is because we're just going to have some basic styling for the button and anything general like that, and then for the animations we're going to have them in the effects.css file, just so it's not one large file. So inside of the title here we'll change this and we'll say button hover effect, and then inside of the body we're just going to have a div which is going to have a class of button holder, which of course is just going to hold our button. Inside our div we'll have our button, and this is going to have several classes. So the first class it's going to have is going to be the btn class, and then a btn1 class, and then we'll have an effect.1 class because this is going to be the first effect. Inside of the body we'll have a span, and this is just going to have that text of button. So we'll open this up with live server, see what it looks like in the browser, and that's how it currently looks at the moment. So first we're just going to give it that general styling. We're going to center the content and then just give some styling to the button, and we're going to do all of that in the style.css. And the first thing I'm going to do is just remove all of the margin and all of the padding, and then set the box size in to border box. Next we're going to target the body, and what we're going to do here is just center all of our content. So we'll say display, flex, justify content to the center, align items to the center, and give this a height of 100 viewport heights. Save that. So that just centers our button there. Next, let's just make sure the font family is Arial, and then we're just going to give it a background color of cornflower blue. So this has this hex color of 695 ED. So just that nice background color. And then from here what we need to do is just apply a position of absolute to the before pseudo element, because that's the element that we're going to be using to create that animation. So we'll say before, set the position of this to be absolute. Make sure we also set the content to an empty string. We'll save that. And again, why we're positioning this absolute is because we're going to be positioning the button as relative, and this pseudo element of the before is going to be positioned absolute inside of the button. We can then create that before pseudo element to help us create that animation. That's essentially what this black background is at the moment. It's that pseudo element of before. So again, that's why we're setting this position absolute. From here, let's target the actual button. So this has a class of btn. We'll set the position of this to be relative, again because we're going to be positioning the before pseudo element absolute inside of here. We'll set the display to be inline block. We'll set the cursor to a pointer. We'll remove the border of this. And then from here, let's just make sure it has a background color of white. From here, we'll type the text inside of the button. So we'll say btn span, set the position of this to be relative to, and then we'll set the display inline block. Make sure on the top it's 0, and then on the left it's also 0. Next, let's just target that text. So we'll make it bold, we'll increase its size, and we'll also set the text to be uppercase. So first we'll say font size to rem, font weight, bold, text transform, uppercase. Let's also apply a bit of letter spacing, and just make sure the width is 100%. And then let's just give it a bit of padding. So say padding 15 pixels top and bottom, and 25 pixels on the left and right. So there's our button there. Let's also make this a transition, so it's all animated, say 0.3 seconds. Save that. So now our button and the general styling is complete. We can now target the pseudo element before, so then we can create that animation. So we'll go inside the effects.css, And the first thing we need to do is just apply some styling to our before pseudo element. So this has that class of btn1. And we'll grab the before. And we'll set the background color to be black. And then we'll also make this a transition, so we'll say 0.3 seconds. And then from here, what we want to do is just target the text when we hover over this button. So whenever we hover over it, it changes the color of the text to be white. So hover off the button, it will change the color back to black. So we'll say btn1, grab the span, set the color of this to be white. So you see it change white now. And then we want to say the border as well. We want to give this a bit of border. Say solid, set it to black. And make sure this is a transition, 0.3 seconds. And we want to say on hover, we want the span to then change its color back to black. Again, make this a transition. We'll say 0.3 seconds. And if I hover over this now, it's going to change the color back to black. So pretty much done with all the styling now. Now we can now start working on the first effect. So we'll just put a comment here. First effect. And we're just going to grab the btn1. Then we're going to grab the class of effect1 that we first initially put inside of the HTML. If we take a look, see it's this class here. And then we'll say on the before, we initially want this to be showing. So we'll say bottom 0, left 0, right 0, and then we'll say height 100%, and then width 100%. So that's the pseudo element of the before on top of this now. So we've got that initial bit. Now if I hover over this, you can see it turns the color of the text to black. So what we need to do now is create that animation where the pseudo element before slides down. So it's really simple. We just grab this btn1.effect1 again. And we say on hover, on the before pseudo element, grab the height and we'll set this to 0%. Now this animation should be working just like in the demo example. And as you can see, when we hover over this, the pseudo element slides down, changes the color of the text to black, and also adds a black border. And if we hover over this, it slides back up, changes the color of the text to white, and I think creates a cool little animation. And now knowing this, all we need to do, create a different animation, is we can basically just duplicate this. And we'll say second effect. And let's just change it in the index.html. So this could be effect 2, save that, and in the effects file for 2, we'll grab the 2, and then essentially to do the opposite, we'll just set, instead of the bottom to be 0, we'll set the top to be 0, and now this will work in the opposite order. You can see now this sliding up instead of down, and then what we can do is actually just do this from left to right. So we'll duplicate this again, and we'll say third effect. And we'll just set this to 3 and change this one to 3, and then we'll say from the top and from the bottom, save that, and need to make sure we change it here too. We'll say from the top, left and bottom, we'll say it's 0, and then instead of the height, we'll target the width. So now this should slide in from the left, and as you can see now our animation is working from the left. And then if we duplicate this for the 4th time, set this to effect 4, and then make sure we do it in the HTML. And then instead of left, we'll do it from the right. Save that. Now if I hover over this, it should be sliding in to the right. And as you can see now, the animation is working on the right side. So that's how we can create 4 different animations using just a pseudo element of before, and then just using the position of absolute and relative, as well as top, left, right, and bottom. So a pretty simple animation, which I think looks pretty cool. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one.